What's up, guys? We're here at Ronnie's shop. We're putting our 14-inch Revelator brake kit on orange slice. So we figured what is the best way to show you kind of a step-by-step of what it takes to put it on. It's super simple. We're not going to show you where every little bolt goes and everything, but basically go over the general steps, show you what it is to install it. It's not that bad. We already did the other side on this truck, so we'll get started on the front, move to the rear. Let's do it. All right, so we're gonna start. This kit we're putting on is set up for the CPP modular spindle. It already has the tabs on here, so it makes it super easy to put on your caliper bracket and put a brake kit onto a C10. So now that we got that, the hubs come pre-packed. They're all pre-packed with grease, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a little bit extra on the spindle pin. So these bearings are all pre-packed already. I just put a little extra around the seal here on the back. Grab our front bearing. Like I said, they're all pre-packed. Get that seated in there. Washer. All right, so once the hub's on, we'll go ahead and put the castle nut on. One thing you want to do with this is you never want to crank on them to tighten them down. Tighten it down enough so there's no play in the hub. So we got the castle nut on, but there's still a little bit of play in the hub, moving a little bit. So like I was saying earlier, you just want to tighten it so there's no play in the hub. So we got the cotter pin in. When you go to cut these, you want to make sure you cut them short enough so that it doesn't contact inside the dust cap. It'll create like a lathe and you'll just get a bunch of aluminum material. Could even catch fire if that happens. So it just has to be in there enough so the cotter pin doesn't back off. It doesn't take much, so you can cut those pretty short. Bend them a little bit each way, cut them short, then we put the dust cap on. Put it in there, make sure nothing's binding. Make sure you have plenty of room and nothing's gonna touch it. Then go ahead and put your O-ring on. Like that. Take a little bit of grease. Just a little bit, it'll pop in there pretty easy. Just like that. These are the main bolts that are gonna hold the caliper bracket to the spindle. So we're gonna put a little Loctite on them. Gonna get the caliper bracket. We include a hub centric ring. That's gonna go on the hub first. That'll make sure the rotor runs nice and true on the hub. Starts life as a 6-lug. We do this kit in a 6-lug and a 5-lug. It's double drilled, doesn't matter because it's gonna run true on the hub. These studs are basically just drive pins to turn the rotor. So put it on there, and what that does is it'll hold the rotor on there while we go ahead and assemble the rest of the caliper on the system. If you look at the rotor, this is actually your passenger side. This will be facing forward, so the front of the truck is obviously right here. So it'll look like it's backwards, but it is going forward. It'll move air from the inside out. Your cross-drilled slot is going to be angled forward like that. Kind of opposite of what you'd think on a wheel, but this will be your passenger side. This is what it'll look like. These are the bolts that hold the anchor bracket for the caliper onto the caliper bracket. We're going to Loctite these as well. When putting on the caliper, you always want to make sure the bleeder is up. The calipers are the same left and right. The only thing that makes them left and right is if the bleeder is up. Always make sure it's up. So this is going to be your passenger side. If this was sitting on the driver's side, your bleeder would be down. So make sure bleeder is up. Pull your foam supports out onto the rotor, and then we can go ahead and put the bolts in. You will use these spacers. What that'll do is that'll just make up the difference on the back side from the anchor bracket to the caliper bracket. We got the caliper tightened up to the caliper bracket. The hose, all we have left is the hose to put on. We do supply DOT braided hoses. Come with your chassis fitting, the correct banjo fitting, with your crush washer. So we'll just hook that up on the frame portion, take off the old line, hook it up, and you are done on the front. And right here, you're looking at a 14-inch rotor with a Corvette C5 caliper. All right, so Ronnie's cutting the backing plate off of the drum so we don't have to pull the axles. That way we cut a section out of it, we can slip the backing plate off. And then what we'll do is, Matador, then we'll cut a section out of these so we can slip them right over, and then we don't have to pull axles. Makes it a lot faster. All right, we're getting started on the back. This has a stock drum set, of course. It's a 70, what is this, 76. So pull off the drum. Once you pull off the drum, all your internals will already be off. We got a little ahead of the game, so we took off all the drum sheaves and everything. There's gonna be 4 bolts that hold on the backing plate to the axle housing. Take those out, and then we can cut the backing plate off so we don't have to pull the axles. Sparks. We got the rotor on, installed, and what you'll have to do a lot of times is clean up the axle register. Just get off the rust or whatever on it. So clean that up, that way you get a nice fit over it. Next, we'll go ahead and prep the caliper, get the pads installed with the abutments. All right, so the last step is to get the caliper mounted. Again, you wanna make sure that the bleeder is up. So these are the last two bolts. These two right here will hold the anchor bracket to the intermediate bracket that you see here. Make sure your spacers are on the inboard side of your base bracket, and that'll get that caliper nice and centered. It does float on the anchor bracket, so it'll kind of center itself up, but that'll get you all dialed in. You do that so well. So we give you essentially what is a hose clamp and a bracket. What that's gonna do is that's gonna let you adapt the brake hose fitting into this tab, and you can rebend the line behind the brake setup that was originally going into your drum brake. You can kind of bend that down into here, and we'll show you. And then your flex hose or your brake hose will come out of there and go to the caliper. So essentially what's gonna happen, fitting's gonna go there. We're gonna rebend this line to head right into here. So that way you don't have to cut anything, you don't have to reflare any tube, just rework it into there. And we'll adjust this and move it so it fits best with the curve and your hose reaches to the new caliper. All right, we're finished up here at Ronnie's.
Ya casi terminamos con Ronnie's.
We're done with the brakes.
Estamos terminados con las brecas.
And we'll see you at C10 Intervention.
Y nos miramos a C10 Intervention.